All right, guys, so we're moving on to a few more works by Da Vinci, and this is The Last Supper. This particular painting is pretty interesting in that it's painted directly on a wall. It is located in Santa Maria del Grazie in Milan, and it was painted in the year 1495 through 1498, and it's 15 feet by 29 feet. So it's very, very large and lifelike in size. We know that Da Vinci was in many ways a scientist. He enjoyed experimenting with different techniques. So experimenting with painting on fresh plaster, he ended up though using a combination that did not end up mixing well and adhering. The work restoring this began pretty much immediately following its completion. And interestingly enough, it's taken about 7 times longer to restore this than it actually took to paint it. And the work to restore it is still going on today. This was in the dining hall of this particular building. The same dishes that those who will be eating in this dining hall will be eating off of were the same ones that Da Vinci decided to paint on the table, where we have Christ surrounded by his apostles. The same lighting, we have light shining to the right of the walls over here. It's the same exact lighting that you would be seeing coming into the windows of the dining hall. Looking at the structure, we have the apostles in groupings of 3. Jesus is in the center. So he's before 3 windows, and then the groupings of 3, those all equal the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. There's great drama. There's a lot of emotion. Christ has just announced that one of you will betray me, and you can almost feel the energy, the conversation, the anger, the confusion, the anticipation on finding out, well, who is this? This can't be true. That most notably holds everything together. The structure of the composition, we have linear perspective being used. In the center where Christ's head is, that would be the vanishing point. And you can imagine there are lines, you draw guidelines going along the doorways here and along the edges of the table. They're all matching up to Christ in the center. So it draws the viewer their eyes into the focal point. This is very typical high Renaissance composition. The formal structure does not stand out though because of the emotive qualities. And you can see if we go in a little bit closer still. Here we go. Go in a little closer still, we can see. Now this is not Da Vinci's version, but a nice stylized, more clear version of this. We have the figure. We go back again, take a minute and see if you can guess who the Judas is. And Judas is the one that was said to have betrayed Christ, and he ultimately ended up being crucified because of Judas. Judas is the figure right to the immediate right of Christ. The pose is reclining back, so kind of a shameful, withdrawn pose. His hand is reaching for a dish. You can see he's also a darker value than lighter value than the others. His face is lit up to highlight who this is. And Judas himself is not manifesting any sort of emotional reaction. And the face is painted to actually resemble one of Da Vinci's own enemies. So he put the face to resemble someone he detested, he did not like, which is kind of crazy. Da Vinci was a keen student of physiognomy, which is the nature or judge of science, which seeks to establish a person's character from features and facial expressions. So he was really interested in this, and he experimented with a lot of this idea of physiognomy, and enjoyed obviously telling stories of symbolism. Moving on, we have Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa, probably hands down the most famous of all paintings. We have sfumato and chiaroscuro being used here. Again, the landscape should remind you a lot of the landscapes that we saw in the previous presentation on Virgin of the Rocks. We have atmospheric perspective being used here. And what that means is as things get further back into the distance, they become washed out, lighter in value, and fuzzy. We've already read about Mona Lisa. We'll watch a few more things on that, but just, looking at the relaxed body of her positioning, she's engaging the viewer directly. This pyramidal composition that you'll see with starting at the crown of her head, we go down to one elbow, go down to the point of her left hand, and then go to the other elbow, and then connect, you have a pyramid, a three-dimensional form. There is also a sense of psychological intensity, it says, to viewing Mona Lisa. She has an enigmatic expression, perplexing, mysterious, difficult to interpret. This is located at the Louvre, and it's surprisingly not as big as you think. It's only 2 feet 6 inches by 1 feet 9 inches, and it was painted between 1503 and 1505. Here are some of the images directly from journals, the notes, thousands of pages, some say upwards of 7,000 pages of these visual journals. He had a study of anatomy. It was a secretive sort of study. This was an illegal thing to do, but he would have said to go and visit morgues and somehow get these bodies and do these autopsies on them. At the age of 32, he started collecting these notebooks, and these are scientific theories of Earth's development. We have flying machines, superimposed information. He wrote left to right in encyclopedia-like content. Da Vinci, again, was just a man of many skills, the idyllic Renaissance man. Finally, we're going to end out with final painting. And interestingly enough, this is located in the National Gallery of Art. It's the only Da Vinci painting in the Northern Hemisphere. It is Ginevra da Vinci. It's an oil on panel. And most notably, there's a lot of symbolism within this painting. We have juniper. This is the pine-looking plant growing in the background. That represents chastity of a young bride. And in Italian, Ginepro also could hint at Ginevra, her name. So he chose this plant maybe for 2 reasons: the symbolism of the plant itself, and then the Italian term for that plant. The artists during this time portrayed women in the abstract, representing an ideal of beauty. Here he's representing more of the realistic beauty that we see here. He's showing her personality, character, and also her social status through the way he has painted. And it's almost like a puzzle in that he includes symbols, plants, sometimes animals, alluding to her moral qualities. The back of this painting, I'm going to be providing a link for you to look at, is in Latin, and basically in translated terms, it says beauty adorns virtue. So anything that is virtuous is then beautiful in his own mind's eye. There's also the laurel and palm wreath that encircles the juniper on the back, and those also have their own meanings. The painting was commissioned, and it was meant to commemorate the marriage as an engagement portrait of Ginevra da Vinci when she was 16 years old. So again, in a nutshell, we have a lot of symbolism. We have pyramid composition, chiaroscuro and sfumato being used to compose Da Vinci's